This is the Decoding Obesity podcast, where we simplify, demystify, and decode obesity, helping you lose weight and feel great. So gear up for a fascinating journey through this ever-evolving field, and let's see what we find. And please remember that the thoughts and opinions on this podcast do not constitute medical advice. Don't forget to visit our website, www.decodingobesity.com, for show notes and more info. And now, here's your host of the Decoding Obesity podcast, Dr. Avishkar Sabharwal.
Hello, my friends. Before we begin, I just want to remind you all to please hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening. This way you can get notified as soon as the new episodes are released. Welcome again to this episode of the Decoding Obesity podcast. It's time for another amazing and inspirational story. My guest today is Chef Gino West. We met over a webinar actually for physicians where he was teaching us how to cook at home, and his passion for healthy cooking really shows through his methods. He is the owner of Prepped Wellness, which is a meal prep company operating in Youngstown, Ohio, with a mission to deliver healthy and fresh meals to its customers. Let's bring him on. Welcome, Gino.
Hello. Again, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited about this whole entire podcast. Ever since I've started my journey and everything like that, I've pretty much only done exclusive video stuff, so I'm really excited. This is my second podcast that I've been asked to do, so I'm very, very excited to just tell my story and how I kind of ended up where I am and hopefully inspire and influence as many people as I can. So thank you again for having me on.
This is great. Yeah, I'm so excited to have you. Well, let's just dive into your story then. I mean, when did your weight really become an issue? I was going through your website. Honestly, when I actually attended that webinar, I never could have imagined that you at one point in time would have been at a higher weight. Yeah. And so tell us about that. When did your weight really become an issue for you?
Yeah, so I'll just back up. So I'm 100% Italian. So with that right there, people, Italian food is love. And I grew up with women. So my mother, my aunts, my grandmother, like my nonna, all that. It's just, I'm a mama's boy. Like I just always attached myself to them. So no matter what, in any environment, it was always just like, feed them. So then, my mom, even if she tried to express any type of portion control for her kids, because my mother was taking care of my great-grandmother as we were growing up at a very young age. My great-grandmother, Mama, would fight with her and say, no. So I just got to a point where she would just let her do what she wanted. So at a very young age, I would say, 5, 6 years old, I struggled with obesity pretty much through my whole entire life. It was very early on in my life because that's just how the culture was and just how I was raised. And like, even if there was any type of anyone combating against it, it wasn't the way it was. The boys, the women, my nonna, like they love their boys. So they want to do whatever they can. And the way to make them happy is by feeding them.
Right.
And it just pretty much spiraled. And then before you know it, like I'm getting in my teenage years and whatnot like that, and just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Right.
That's pretty much my whole childhood, teenage until, I started my whole like change of lifestyle.
Yeah. So, did you ever feel self-conscious that, you're on a heavier side, but your friends or whatever are not as heavy as you are?
So I was always aware of just kind of like, how I looked, the weight, clothes sizes, all that kind of stuff, but I'm a very personable person. I'm super outgoing, so I was always friends with everybody in school. So there was never really, there was a couple, fat jokes here and there that got thrown at me, but it was never an issue, especially on like an emotional level. So I didn't really understand the physical part of it, especially at that age. So I really wasn't necessarily aware of the potential of how I was damaging myself until like way after, what I mean? Because like I didn't deal with being made fun of. I didn't deal with any of that like emotional trauma of being overweight, you know what I mean? And then again, in turn, when I decided to make the change, it was completely for myself. You know what I mean? I wanted that.
Sure. So what changed? What was that moment that made you change?
So I remember it fairly clear. It was May 2007. My sister, I have a younger sister. She got approved for a bariatric lap band surgery. So at that point, I got on the scale. I'm like, all right, I'm 350 pounds.
Wow.
I'm like, something has to change here. Like, I like to dress nice. I'm having to buy like, wearing like pants 44, like double X, like 3X, like shirts. I'm like, something has to change here. So then at that point, is, and this is what I like try to like influence and inspire other people like to just be able to like, start that sustainable lifestyle change, this internal like snap that has to happen. It's like a switch. Because prior to that, my mind wasn't aware of what was even happening. So up until that point. So then when that happened, so there was like a few things that came into play. It was like my sister being my younger sister. So there was like this competitive factor that was involved. And then also that internal need that I wanted to actually make that change for myself. So then right there, May 17th, I'm like, boom, let's go. Like it's time. So yeah, that's kind of when the start of my journey happened.
So what did you try? I mean, what did you really do about this? How did you start your journey towards a healthier self?
So the good thing, especially at that point, like I had my Aunt Dee Dee on my side. She was very conscious about just her lifestyle habits, So I had a nice like influence backbone if I had any questions about anything. But it's like when I tell people and talk to them like, how'd you do it? It's like we all kind of understand, even though it's perspective, we still have an idea what is good and bad as far as like what we're putting into ourselves, So how I started it, like I lost 140 pounds in a year and a half. Wow. Very healthy, 1 to 3 to 4 pounds a week, consistently, very maintainable, very sustainable. And it enabled me now to be able to keep doing it, 15 years later or so, without any knowledge. I had no knowledge of anything. Like after, that's why I pursued my career in dietetics, all that stuff. I learned all like the science stuff after I did it. So I pretty much was like, okay, chicken salads and like anything just is clean to my knowledge that I knew at that point. But I still enabled myself to make my family happy because I gave myself one cheat day. That was every Sunday. I would just eat whatever my Nonna threw at me one day a week. So then I'm eating clean. And just to my knowledge at that point, it completely evolved. And I just pretty much just put myself on a pretty strict regimen, like during the week. And then I still gave myself that cheat day. Gave myself that cheat day. So then that enabled me to be able to sustain that for a very long time. Then, like I said, before I knew it, I'm 140 pounds lighter. I just saw these different phases of myself, me evolving into this better version of myself just by like, for lack of better terms, not eating like an idiot, And it's just like I said, like I gave myself that one cheat day, I moderated, and that's how I show people how to do it now. And that's what I've created with my company. It's like, dude, I can set you completely up, where you're eating really well, really clean, really sustainable, and then you can moderate your cheat days. If you want to go out to a restaurant with your significant other, if you want to like, eat your cheesecake on, a Saturday or Sunday, so you can still moderate it. So you're breaking that monotony up. And like, again, after a while, like even after I lost the weight, even a couple years after, my cheat days like dwindled down where I wasn't cheating once a week. I was cheating like once a month, and then the once a month like changed to like just the holidays, and then so yeah, it was definitely a really cool experience to witness, and then to where I can shed light on the people that are like trying to do it.
Right. So did you have any previous diet attempts that you had and which would have failed, or it was just like a simple, straightforward journey for you with your diet changes?
So I guess, as far as like the diets, I was never really necessarily in, even at the early beginning phases, I was never into just like fad diets because again, there's not a lot of education behind it, right? It's just like, do this and then you'll be fine, right? So there's not a lot of like backup to it, and it just doesn't like form sustainability, I guess, in a lifestyle change. Like I always knew I had to make a lifestyle change. Mm-hmm. It's all like your mind, your thought process, right? So it's like people will think, they'll be like, hey, I just need to drop 15 pounds. Okay, so what's going to happen after the 15 pounds? You know what I mean? Like me, I knew it's like, there wasn't a stopping point. I didn't really say like, hey, I have to lose this much weight. I'm like, let me just keep going until I get where I know I'm healthy. It's like I'm living and I'm walking these steps of like an actual lifestyle change. It's not like, okay, I just need to lose this. And that was the problem with the fad diets. Like I tried different things, I tried just like, proteins and just like vegetable. And then I did an all raw thing before, because I'm really into nutrigenomics. I have like a lot of colleagues of mine and, Dr. Michelle, like we're super into nutrigenomics, like how our genetic code, it's like, that's the map of our diet, like and what we need to eat and what works with us, and like, and I was able to figure out what works best with my diet, and I've always known I've been lactose intolerant, that's why everything that I provide is dairy-free and gluten-free, because I just feel like no one should be really eating dairy, but that's a whole other subject. But, the gut health's huge. It's like paying attention to myself. It's like I do really well with raw food. So I try to eat predominantly more raw stuff than I do like cooked things. My genetics doesn't do well with high fat food. I'm sure over time it has definitely evolved, like just because of what I've been doing over the past, 10, 15 years now. But it's just like, I would try different things just to educate myself on it. So I never had to like really put myself in that position because like, I kind of had this weird like insight on just like sustainability, I guess. And like I would just try different things where I'm like, okay, let's do a lot of protein. Like, okay, I'm lifting a lot right now, so let's do a lot of protein, And then I just kind of figured out what my gut health needs, what makes me feel really well, energized, flat, like just good, clear-minded,
Sure.
Because foods can bog people down a lot. I mean, it's like...
So you were just kind of listening to your body and...
Yeah. I just try to really pay attention to my body and like what works with me and not based off of like, a template. It's like, you're guaranteed to lose 20 pounds. It's like, okay, everybody has a different genetic makeup. Like just because it worked for one person doesn't mean it works for the next. And that's kind of like how I took it and kind of like evolved myself, was I just like kind of paid attention to my own like gut health, because I've always had stomach issues growing up.
Sure.
Like, and that got better as I was getting older. No one knew what was going on because my family didn't know like, anything about anything. It's just like,
sure.
They didn't know I was lactose intolerant. And I'm like, my Nona's trying to feed me ice cream, like, or like anything like that. They didn't know I had a fat absorption issue, like, so they just feed me whatever, so it's like, and again, it's my evolution and me paying attention to myself, I was able to kind of figure that out, and then I got, a few minute like genomics tests and stuff like that. So which, kind of gives you that good old blueprint, you know what I mean? But yeah. So it's just like, to answer your question, I just never really fell into a lot. I tried some stuff, but it was more like trying to make myself feel the best I can. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. So how did your obesity play into you becoming a chef?
I think the biggest thing, especially, so with me growing up with women that cooked, really gave me this natural ability to like be just good at cooking, improvising. So then also too, it's like multi-leveled. So there was that. And then also my family in particular, they had this huge like hosting power where they loved to take care of people. So I absorbed a lot of that, which makes me do what I do now, So there was that too. So in a kitchen, my whole entire life growing up. And then also that natural way to comfort people and just host people and just always like, it's like my Nona, she makes something new. She'll give me it and like stare at me. Be like, is it good? Is it good? And I do the same thing with people. Any new recipes, like I'm always very, very particular just how I do stuff. So there was like that background that I had. It was indirect. That was just like in my blood. I couldn't, whether or not if I tried to, that just wouldn't have went away because that was just there. So then as my lifestyle changed, and then I still had that, is where my cooking ability evolved. With culinary background, with just, like classes and, stuff like that, with food and culture. I have a background in food and culture, again, attached with my dietetic degree, all that different learning, different cultures and just being able to absorb different like cooking techniques, I was able to now change the game on how people define healthy food, right? Because like a lot of the times, especially like, within the last 10 years, there's this weird lingering negative energy, healthy food. If I have to eat healthy and meal prep, it's broiled chicken and steamed broccoli. That's it. No, that's not the case at all. I'm hitting 5 parts of the world on every recipe that I'm cooking, So like, again, like that's where I was able to evolve. And also with my, with the culinary background, I was able to take specific techniques, and have that understanding. My family, like I give my family a lot of props where I'm at today. Like my family doesn't cook unhealthy, they just cook what they know, you know what I mean? So there's just a lot of carbs that, involved with it. It's like, and then now, thankfully, I remember when I first went to dietetic school, it was 2012. I mean, this is like, the gluten-free stuff. I remember my first class was medical nutrition therapy. We were like testing gluten-free because we were talking about celiac. So like they were bad. There was only like 1 or 2 companies out there and they was just specifically driven for medical purposes. That was it. It's like, okay, cool. We have an X amount of percentage of celiac within the United States. So let's, just pump out this much, like just for them. Right. It wasn't like this worldwide, like gluten intolerance thing. You know what I mean? So it was bad. But nowadays, that has completely changed to where like I'm getting like quinoa brown rice pasta and I'm able to manipulate them to where people are like, I missed pasta. I'm like, dude, you're getting like completely sustainable and complex carbohydrates. You know what I mean? You're not getting all this crazy starch and you're still able to eat like 2 menus. I put like a pasta, like puttanesca on there. It's like a nice traditional, like northern, like Italian recipe. And it's like, capers and olives and like fresh tomatoes. And people were able to still enjoy the stuff that they weren't able to. And they're still eating like super clean and super portioned. So it was nice to like I said, like that just with me being able to merge both like, qualities of myself, one aspect to, be able to want to take care of people and just love people and want to see people be better. I love that. It's like, I never had to do anything when I was growing up. My mom, my aunts, my nonna, like did it for me. So it's like, now I enjoy doing that for other people. That's my joy. That's my happiness. I mean, that's why my business is doing so well. It's because like, I'm in it for the person. And it's just like, and that's again, where like, I can try different things out too. It's like, my girlfriend, like she's borderline celiac. I mean, she probably we're going to test in 2 weeks, so I'm able to like do things for her that she's unable to enjoy. Like I can alter anything. And so that's again where my culinary background and then my dietetic background, like put myself to be able to merge the two to just create a really, sustainable environment for not only myself, because I'm doing it already, but for people too.
Sure. So how do you manage your temptations around all those crazy foods that are out there, right? As a chef, it's so difficult.
So there gets to a point, one, like our minds change, our palates change, our guts change, everything changes, especially being a chef and then, having the background that I have, you tend to be a little picky in a sense. So, and also too, me eating as clean as I do, I kind of have an idea, what like happens in other environments, you know what I mean? So there's not like my biggest, I guess, temptation is like my sweet tooth. That's like the biggest thing. Because I was never like, I don't eat fried foods. I never was a big fried food person. Even now, if I eat anything fried, my stomach just turns. Like, it just cramps, turns, and, so it's like, why would I want to put myself through misery? I know what dairy does to me. So why combat it? I mean, like, it's like, okay, do I want to feel like good or do I want to feel like really, really, really crappy? So I can, I'm never really a big cheese guy anyway. So it's like, I can kind of get around that, So the biggest thing, I guess, is like the sweets, And it's not even necessarily like I loved like candy, stuff like that, like sweets and junk food. And my biggest thing, I guess, how I get around it is I just don't buy it. I just don't buy it. If it's not there, I'm not even thinking of it. It's like, okay, so how like horses, when they're like on like main roads, they have those blinders on.
Yeah.
That's just kind of how it is for me. It's like my blinders are just like always on. So then like if I see like, I guess in the beginning phases, like a fast food place or something like that, I just would have my blinders on and not even like realize it's there. And it's like now at this point, I mean, it's not even in my thought process. Like, oh, let me stop at this fast food place and just, I can get this. Like, no, it's not even there. I mean, like at all. Even like after a certain point too, like now I'm so invested that it's just what it is,
Right.
So even if I would be going out with people to a restaurant, I know how to pick apart that restaurant, and I also know what to say to keep things how I relatively need them. You know what I mean?
Right.
For my
So it's kind of like knowing your body and ordering what you think would be right for your body.
Yeah, like because people, I mean, a lot of times people are just they're insecure and they're kind of scared to kind of say something to like a waiter. So no, say it. Like I'm lactose intolerant. Like I have this allergy. Like they can't give it to you. So it's like, just speak up, just say certain things. You can get around it. And that's what I was able to do. Is like, if I ever go out, I know the industry. So it's like, I just know like, hey, just like keep it. And I know how, it's like sometimes if you're like, say at an Italian restaurant, they'll put cheese in their sauce. So it's like, I'll just get something with like oil and garlic or something. You know what I mean? I just know how to like alter it. Sometimes I get annoyed, but it's like, it's like whatever.
So, you're a chef. So why don't you share a simple, healthy recipe with our listeners so that something that they can make at home?
So I love soups. I love stews. Like this is the perfect season for it. It's like cold out. And I made this like a white bean stew tonight. And super easy, super simple, super fresh, super fast. You can make like big batches of it, freeze it. I mean, like the longer this stuff marinates, the better it tastes. It's a soup. And it pretty much is just, if you guys are listening, it's any type of bean, whether it's white beans, cannellini beans, which are part of the white bean. You can do kidney beans, anything like that of your preference. Celery, some veggie stock, a little salt if you're on the salt thing. No salt's fine too. Black pepper, a little cumin, a little paprika, fresh lemon, some lemon zest. And then the last thing you're going to put in that is crushed tomatoes. And after that, you just let it simmer, let it hang out there for a couple hours, and you're set. Super sustainable, clean, delicious. I guarantee you almost everybody will love that, and it's plant-based, which is great. So you're getting, it's super complex. You're getting proteins from the beans and carbs from the beans. It's lower in fat because, there's no oil. So that's nice. Yeah. That's a really, really nice recipe.
That's cool. Yeah, that's a very simple, straightforward recipe. And obviously, beans are very hearty. I love beans, all types of beans.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that's really cool. I'm definitely going to try this.
Yeah, you got to try it. It's so good.
Definitely. So tell us about Prep Wellness. What do you do there and how do you help people?
So Prep Wellness, again, like anything in life, it's like, that evolved as well to where I'm at now. So at first, I graduated with my dietetic in 2015. And I knew I never really wanted to necessarily put myself like in a nursing home. I never wanted to put myself in a hospital. I really, really, really enjoyed the focus of integrative therapy. Like, how can I get someone to change their lifestyle before anything bad happens, like really bad, to a point to where they're elderly, or they're non-compliant, or they're just so far into, what I mean? So it's like, how can I, catch it before anything happens? I'm like, food. It's all food. I mean, it's what I've been through. It's what I've now been learning. It's what I've just been evolving to get food. So I'm like, how can I create a process where I do all the shopping, all the cooking, and all they have to do is eat? It's realistic. It's cost effective. It's sustainable. And they don't have to do one thing. They don't have to think about it. All I got to do is it's like eating. Eat. All I got to do is eat. That's it. So I was like, okay, let me start, a company pretty much based off that, So I started off Prep Wellness doing just solely in-house. I was pretty much like a personalized in-house, lifestyle chef. So I'd come to your house once a week. I'd come with all the groceries. I'd prep all your meals for 5, 6, 7 days. You'd eat it. I'd come back the following week. Boom, we just kept going. So that was going fantastic. I was, helping a lot of people out. But the only issue is I couldn't clone myself. So I got to a point, I was doing at my busiest point, I was doing 20 houses a week,
Oh, wow.
And I'm driving all over the place, some clients in PA, some clients out in Ohio. I'm trying to just manage, the max I can do is because I'm just myself, I can only do maybe 3 houses a day.
Sure.
If it's one person, maybe pushing 4 houses, but that's an insanely long day of going all over the place. So something kind of has to, it stopped me from reaching out to a lot of people, which,
right.
in the end, that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be able to just reach out to as many people as possible. And with my cooking skills, my comforting personality to where people would just, let me in their homes, because that's huge, and then also my knowledge of just food and, and dietetics, of just being able to help people change, wasn't able to be duplicated. There was no way for me to find that second version of me.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, what's my next step? So I'm talking to a couple of my buddies, my business buddies, and they're like, dude, just get a commercial kitchen and scale it. Scale your business. Get a commercial kitchen. So then 2 years ago, I decided to get a commercial kitchen and scale Prep Wellness. And then what that did was it enabled me to reach out to an unlimited amount of people within my area, and still keep, it's everything's fresh, nothing's frozen. I'm still able to do my own thing and just train people under my roof.
Right.
That's way easier than having somebody, trying to train someone to go to someone's house and talk, because I'm still the front man. I'm still there. I'm still the face of Prep Wellness. I'm still talking to people directly. It's still super personal. People ask me questions, this, that, and the other. It's I'm still there, right there with them. But I can now train my chefs, my packers, my this, my that, to now replicate and mimic my brand, my product. So that way my quality still stays. Now I can just, I keep everything internal. I have 4 delivery drivers. I'm covering 5 counties, all this kind of stuff. So then that was able to just completely evolve to a whole nother level.
Do you do it just locally or do you do nationally also?
So it's local. Well, local-ish, I would say. So I cover pretty much it's a 50-mile radius, So in my area, so I'm in Youngstown, so it's Mahoney County. So I cover Mahoney County, I cover Trumbull County, Columbiana County. I'm in PA, so I do Mercer County, Lawrence County, dabbling a little bit in Allegheny County. So then now, that's pretty much my coverage area, because I knew there's a lot of these like big box companies and people that ship. The moment you ship anything, like food-wise, the quality just depreciates probably by a quarter, 25%, you know what I mean? There's so much different things you have to do. So, so like if I were to even scale this thing bigger, I would just open up other hubs in other states. So then, but yeah, pretty much now, just with me with the whole commercial kitchen thing, I'm able to still reach out to a very, very wide range of population with my drivers, which is nice. Yeah.
No, that's truly inspirational.
Yeah.
I mean, this is really inspirational. There's such an inspirational story you have, Gino.
Thank you.
Yeah. Listeners, don't forget to drop us a review or a comment if you have one. And if there's any specific topic that you would like me to discuss here, please do let me know. You can write me to host@decodingobesity.com, and do subscribe for more inspiring stories like this one in the future. That's all we have time for today. I'm afraid we're out of time. Thank you so much again, Gino, for sharing your story. Thank you everyone for listening in. I'll see you all next time.
You've been listening to the Decoding Obesity podcast. Please remember, the information in this podcast should not be used in any legal capacity whatsoever. The thoughts and opinions expressed on this podcast are solely of the host and his guests and do not constitute medical advice. Views and opinions on this show do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of any organization. And that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you so much for listening in. Don't forget to visit our website, www.decodingobesity.com, for show notes and more info. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please feel free to rate, review, and subscribe on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate that effort. Until next time.